We're on 56th Street, and I thought I'd show you this obnoxious tower, residential tower. This was the first of the big tall ones that now dominate the skyline when you look south. And I cannot tell if it's made out of some kind of actual quarried building stone or whether it's cast concrete. Though as we pan down, we can see that they've used a marble, decorative marble, in the front. We'll get a little closer. Maybe we can figure out whether this is cast stone, manufactured, or whether it's actually been quarried. But I believe it's cast. Going up, up, up. And you see actually the way in which the design of it, these darker panels are actually a way in which they overall can lighten the overall load, and I think bring services up without losing quality of life in terms of water. And so there's some tricks that allow this to be as tall as it is, engineering wise. I do like the square windows. We're just going to pan down to look at the marble that they put on this wall, and then marble all in the little plaza in the front. It's actually kind of, when you think about it, a really boring entrance. I mean, for such height and such arrogance in terms of its scale going up, it has no personality on the ground. Panning down, and we're close now to that tower, Hormone Tower, and we can see almost immediately that unlike a travertine that has these holes, this is a cast cement. So this was manufactured, and there were some air holes left behind in the cement, and they are being used here as a decorative component. This one cooled and cracked, and perhaps that happened in many cases, but you know, they don't really care with a building like this. No one wants to look at this up close. This may even fall into the category of, for some people, of good from far. Well, good if you like something really tall, but far from good. Thank you, Eli King, architect, for that quote. And then we turn around and we just see that the marble continues into this plaza, which has clearly been a requirement of the developer of this apartment building. But it also speaks to the fact that in New York City, when they build these big buildings, yes, maybe they give us a little public space with some chairs to sit in, but they're never required to throw any money towards building schools, because one of the great mayors of our recent past, Michael Bloomberg, explained that if we force developers to set aside money for schools when they built their new buildings, why they would never build here. And so we get no funding from real estate developers who develop housing, even if it's largely empty and only serving the super rich. We get no funding for educating our population. Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg. There's our really tall building, the empty apartments, and good from far, far from good. But this is an interesting building right here that I wouldn't show you if it weren't for this little cornerstone that says it was built in 2000. And clearly we have a limestone here. By the way, Zeckendorf is the guy who controlled a lot of the World Trade Center site, dictated the terms of how that site got developed. But this is a limestone, and you can see the caulk, but then you see what's the story in construction in 2001, the caulk peeling away, but look at what happened to the stone. Because we're not dealing with blocks, we're dealing with thin limestone laid on top of some kind of a either cement or steel frame. And then we go down to the famous apron of granite. But in this building, it's really not doing anything. And look, in the 20 years of this building's life, this granite has been beaten to hell. Because it's not actually a block of granite, it's just a thin slab. So clearly somebody banged into this and it cracks. How long will it sit like this? Who knows? There is a little bit of a slab here of granite, but this building was built in panels that had been prefabricated in some kind of factory and then hung off of a frame that had been constructed first. This is a way many new tall buildings have been built. So they're modular. There's the modular building. And I only came across the street to look at the one on the opposite corner because it's got a granite apron, but we can see the blocks are actually blocks of granite, and they are serving a purpose in supporting the rest of the building, which is limestone going up, lots of decorative carving, because again, limestone is so soft that it's easy to shape, and with a lovely granite apron at the bottom. What are these unassuming houses? Well, we're on East 65th Street, and these two houses were owned by the Sarah Roosevelt family, mother of Franklin, and she and Franklin and Eleanor lived side by side. I don't think Eleanor enjoyed that, and this is where Franklin recuperated after he came down with polio. We can see that they're brick with limestone window frames and decorative stonework, but otherwise they're not really anything special in terms of our rock diary, but they do have some history. Here's the plaque. The Roosevelt houses were designed in 1907, 1908 by Charles Platt as English Georgian double townhouses. Now, we won't go on from there, but it is interesting. I just saw an interesting little video about how Franklin Roosevelt, made it a part of his life work to help people who had polio. And one of the people who benefited from the government programs that he set up in the 1930s as president was none other than a man named Addison McConnell, the young man who got polio as a child. Well, that Addison has gone on to become Mitch McConnell, who doesn't seem to want to help others the same way he was helped. So, a little detail on Franklin Roosevelt, polio, and our current politics. We're on Madison Avenue at like 70th Street, 71st, and I just wanted to show you this classic New York brownstone church. This is St. James. I think it's a Presbyterian church, maybe Episcopal, I can't remember. And it's made out of this sedimentary rock, which has got a lot of hematite holding together the particles of sand. This is a sandstone, and this was a tremendously popular building stone in New York City in the 1800s, and we'll take a look at it up close. It is this stone that gives the name to many buildings that we call brownstones in New York. Handsome brick building with some limestone, but we're not interested in that. We're interested in this brownstone, a sandstone, If we can get close enough, we might be able to pick out individual grains of sand that are cemented together with hematite. I don't know what's caused this pockmark texture on this rock. Could be that there were larger clasts that have fallen out. You can see that this may have been layered horizontally at one point. And there's variations in the color. And this stone is found locally. So, stone that can be cut and decorative elements can be made from it, as we see they did here. And then around doorways. Again, relatively soft stone. And this church has used it for pretty much everything, including the steps. So your New York City brownstone. St. James, oh, it's Episcopal. I guess I should have known. They had all the power in this period. The Episcopalians, same kind of religion as the Anglican Church of England.